Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Frenemies, the podcast where sales and marketing talk. Today, I'm joined by Adam Holmgren, the CEO and founder of Fibbler. Welcome, Adam.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
It's so lovely to have you on. Today, we will talk lots about B2B marketing in Europe, demand generation, and of course, attribution and Fibbler. So, to get started, what do you currently see the biggest bottlenecks for B2B marketers for B2B marketers in the market in SaaS companies right now?
No, but I think it's very difficult to be a marketeer today or to work at a SaaS company today because there's more and more companies out there that there's so many companies and so much competition in any category today. So I think it's very hard to win only on having the best product anymore. I think it rarely happens. I mean, someone could build your product probably in a few weeks. So I think marketeers are really essential. They are more important than ever. I think typically what stands out and what works is, building a brand people love, having a narrative that people want to follow. So I think that the blocker is really that. I think, how can we find other modes apart from like the product that we can win on? So is it like brand, or is it like we can build a huge following, or other things like that? And I think marketeers are really in the driver's seat in all of that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the bottleneck, and especially what you point out right now, is also that the market is so crowded. So also when you point out brand and so on, there is so much great content in the market. There are so many platforms to cater to, and so many opportunities. But in that, also lots of competition in any content format you're in, and so on.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like anything you're writing about, someone else is probably doing the same very similarly. Like, so you have to find something that can make it stand out for you. Is it your personality, or is it something else? I think that's is more crucial than ever, for sure. And also, like, but there's more content than ever, but not everything is great. Of course, there's a lot of AI slop.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like bad things out there as well. So I think as long as we also focus on quality, I think that is also what is going to win. Yeah.
Absolutely true. But in the quality, the fun part, especially when we talk about content, and that often also relates to social media, is of course also what like that a lot of times, like what defines quality, right? Because a lot of times it is like the noise that cuts through and gets more attention rather
Yeah.
than the quality.
Yeah, yeah, maybe it is. I mean, I think especially for social, if we talk something like LinkedIn, I think it's so much about, you know, people reading your things and just feeling that it is you who are writing that. So I mean, finding your voice, you can for sure get help of AI to do that, but it still needs to be your thoughts and your ideas and your unique point of view. Because I think that's what people want to read. They don't want a checklist or like a playbook, a generic playbook. They want your thoughts and your opinions, and I think that is, maybe more true than ever, that we need to be more personal with everything that we put out there. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I think across conversations I've had so far this season, that is something that stood out. Of course, AI often gets mentioned. It is something that we all have incorporated and that drives the modern world. But the focus on personality and your actual voice becomes more and more important, and I think something that we humans also crave, which
100%.
brings us to the next part. Um, for me, like you founded Driving Demand, a big community, online community, and for me, with that, you were also a voice of actually bringing demand generation to Scandinavia. So, what do you feel now, years later? Where do we stand when it comes to demand generation in modern B2B marketing?
No, but I think demand generation has evolved a lot over the years, and maybe simplified. I think demand generation was great because it kind of it became a concept of something that we think didn't exist, and we were able to kind of push companies and kind of organizations to that. Now I think we've also realized maybe that a few things in demand generation might not be fully true. So I think there's many things that goes into that has evolved. Like typically we divide demand generation into two parts. We have one part that is like the demand capture part, where we are essentially capturing all of those 5% that are ready to buy at any point. And I think I still think that is very true, and we see studies about that all the time, that these are the ones that will be willing to buy in a quarter or so. If you only focus on them, it will be very hard to win long term, right? And then the other part of demand generation is typically probably now more your regular brand awareness, right? So how can we stay in front of these other 95% of the buyers until they are ready to buy? So I think the shift has really been that. Before we talked a lot about creating demand, right? But it's not necessarily true. Maybe it's more like they are the buyers, they create their own demand, but we can be there when that happens. So I think that is the key for me, like, and that is what I'm trying to do with a lot of my marketing, trying to, if we can be in front of the right buyers, say the right things, and just engage with them as much as possible for them to remember us. Hopefully, when they are there to make a choice about a platform or whatever they want to solve, we are included in that.
Yeah. And I think it connects nicely to a point we previously touched on, how crowded the market is in any category. So I think the need probably has also shifted from creating solution awareness and problem awareness, because most categories are already like existing and so on. So it has shifted actually on the demand creation part.
Yeah, and I mean, it's extremely hard to create a new category these days. I feel like it's like, I don't know, you would have to come up with something extreme. And it's also difficult sometimes. It was very popular to create categories a few years back and maybe even now, but uh, companies also realized, I think, or I've realized that being part of a category is also a great thing, because then you can lean on something, like people are actually looking for something and you can do it slightly differently, but you at least have if there's no one else in your category, you should be worried, I think, because then there's probably not that much demand for your product.
That is already a great insight to
Yeah,
take away. But so far, I haven't come across a company that has no competition. But that's a great one to look out
exactly.
for. Being at the center of this shift from lead generation to demand generation, how have you seen that actually play out in practice?
Yeah, but I still think a lot of organizations are uh, at the same stage they have always been. They are looking at, last touch, first touch. They want to drive leads into the sales team, and that's how they're measured. So I still think that is very true, especially companies that are, VC backed, PE backed. They have their typical playbooks, and it usually involves looking at channels, looking at how many leads and deals and so on that they drove, which is very, I do think some companies have gone past that, of course, but I would still say like 90% of the companies are still looking at life like that and aren't really willing to take risky brand plays or things like that, because they are, they need to drive leads to the sales team, which is very sad. I think.
But in a way, I mean, demand generation is also about driving leads to the sales team. It's just that the focus is split out more and is more looked at in a more sustainable way, right? So instead of just looking at like that lead gen part, it is split out because it has the demand creation part.
Yeah, and I mean, I think typically like the leads coming in is that's the lagging indicator in a way, and especially pipeline and revenue is very lagging. I think what we often as marketeers need to focus on is more the leading part. Like how can we stand out as a brand? How can we make them feel something? And that in turn will of course turn into inbound and deals and pipeline and so on. I think the hard thing has been, or the obsession has been around driving leads, volume of leads, driving them cheaply, low CPLs. So I think that has maybe been the issue. But yes, of course, we need to get business into to grow the company. That is still the number one priority for everyone. But I think for marketeers, I still think it's so important to, focus on leading indicators, building the brand, building the narrative right, and then, also trusting that the other parts will happen if we do it well.
And of course,
Yeah.
also having the tools to adjust if they don't happen exactly at the time that you maybe plan to or have to prove or have to be adjusted, right?
No, exactly, and a lot of things take time, right? So it's also that we or that you get trust to continue to build on that vision that you have, because what you do today might not be seen in pipeline and revenue until 15 months later on. So we have to have that trust within the team and the organization that we're doing the right things. And yes, then we can do certain things that are more short term as well, of course. So it's a combination, I think. Like how can we grow long term, but also, of course, meet our short term goals? And it's very tricky. Like, it's really hard to be a marketer that are goal based on both short term and long term in that sense.
Absolutely. And I think signals play a big role in that as well. So signals as
Yeah.
indicators to leading to goals, especially focusing more on the demand creation part and the parts that might not
Mm.
feel that tangible or that aren't that tangible to the overall organization, but still tie heavily to business objectives.
And I think that's why ABM has become so popular, right? Because marketing can focus on pushing things to the right account, and we can then surface these signals to the sales team that it looks like they might or might not be more ready to talk to us, and then like that's how we work together. So I think that's also a healthy development that has happened.
Absolutely, and again, the shift we've already touched on of how crowded the market and categories are. So essentially, you have to look at your audience and prioritize because competing with everyone that has the same total addressable market as you is not sustainable, but also not possible.
No, exactly. And you often have a finite amount of budget, right? And you have to make it work for as long as you can and for as many people as you can. But you have to then select like which one is my most important target group, maybe, and what should I talk about?
Absolutely. So attribution, it's still a big debate in the
Mm.
market. What problem does it solve for marketers in today's market and and business world?
Yeah, I mean, attribution is super tricky, and it is going to continue to be tricky because it's such, especially in B2B, because it's so complex, right? It's like if we were in e-commerce, it's way simpler because people typically see an ad or see it a couple of times and then they click and then they buy something, and that is not really how it works in B2B. Like there's so long sales cycle, people are all over the place. There's so many buyers involved in especially enterprise buyer journey, right? So I think that is the main issue. And then the second issue to that is that most companies are still operating under like a last click or a first click attribution model, meaning they are always looking at success based on what happened just before a company came in to become a deal, right? Which will then, of course, say that a few channels typically worked much better than others, like a Google Ads maybe looked very good because they searched for your brand name and came into the pipeline. But everything else that you did awareness wise before that doesn't really get any credit. So I think attribution for me has really been a tough topic over the years, and something we always have to talk about because we have to prove what we are doing is actually giving something back, right? Because that's we don't want to just be like a cost center at the company. We want to show that what we're putting money that we're putting behind marketing is actually giving something back. But yeah, I truly think about attribution as a good thing for marketeers because we need to be equipped with as much information as possible to take decisions, but also to kind of argue for our case internally. Um, yeah, it's just a hard buyer journey in B2B to fully understand, which is why I love these different types of customer journeys that the team at Dream does a lot, that we do a lot now, like to kind of show, okay, this was the buyer journey. It was 24 months long and people went all over the place here, and then they finally ended up becoming a customer. That is very telling to how it looks today.
Yeah, and I think it is also a fantastic tool to, as you say, exactly make that case, make the case of why B2B marketing has to be run the way it is and has to look at the long term, because buyer's journey are long. So it has to address that. But also, yeah, bringing that transparency into organizations to actually make data driven decisions and again focus on what needs to be prioritized.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's very. I feel like the most important thing around attribution is to whatever model you decide or whatever you decide to do is to align on that internally. Like, okay, this is how we do it. This is how we think about it. And I mean, especially now when I'm running my own business, I've never measured things this little before. Like, I don't when I don't have a CEO to prove anything to. I'm doing what I really believe in, and that typically leads to good things, right? So I think there's some things we need to definitely measure, and we need to show things for. But I think it's also good to have trust again to be able to do a few things without maybe obsessing over measuring them short term because you believe so strongly in a brand play long term. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, wonderful your point you're bringing up there. Yeah, attribution is of course also a wonderful alignment tool. Similar as so many other things, it is a fantastic tool to actually partner up with sales and look at the journey, align on the priorities, and of course also with other departments. I mean, it gets also interesting in customer success.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone is interested in, okay, these customers have come in. How did they hear about us? How did they come in? And I think all of those topics are great information that we can all talk about because they can, steer the decisions we take on what to build and how we build it and what channels we should be visible in and so on. So, I mean, I think it's great data to have for every organization and kind of obsess over. Yeah.
So you would, not surprisingly though, considering you're the
Yeah.
founder and CEO of Fibbler, but you would say that attribution is one of the tools that needs to be first priority in a tech stack.
I think it depends a little bit on the organization. I wouldn't say first. I would say first I would start executing really well in terms of actually, getting campaigns out there, saying what like everything of that would be my priority first. But yes, then I think it is important to when that is done to have a foundation on, okay, how is these things working, like I definitely think that's important. Like at some point you're going to have to answer to someone what you have been doing and what it is giving back to the company, and if you don't have an answer to that, you will be in trouble, I think. So I mean, yes, in that sense it would be smart to set it up also in the beginning, and it doesn't have to be very advanced in the beginning. Like you could, like we've talked historically about this, how did you hear about us field, right?
Yes.
Implementing something like that in the beginning might show us enough evidence towards something, so it doesn't have to be super complex. I just think you need to have it in the back of your mind when you do things.
Yeah. Definitely. I yeah. First words that came on the "How did you hear about us?" field. I was heavy on implementing it and showing the
Yeah.
insights received, which back then led to a lot of great things. So I can only agree. So was that about the part where you noticed that there is a gap in the market for Fibbler, or how did you come up with the idea?
Yeah, but I've been working in also in B2B marketing for the past 10 years or so at various startups or scale ups. And I always had to prove what I was doing, of course, as a marketeer, which worked fine for various channels and activities. But LinkedIn ads as one was really difficult because no one comes to LinkedIn to see, to click an ad and buy a software. It just doesn't happen. So it doesn't really work like a Google ad where someone is actually searching for something they want. So it's very different like that. So I knew at that point, or I knew for many years that there must be a better way to understand how an awareness channel like this works and how it impacts pipeline and so on. And then, of course, there were a bunch of other software already available, but more towards like the enterprise, the mid-market side. So I could never afford those. And then I just ended up in like a state, I need to build something for myself here at this company. And that is what Fibbler ended up being. And then we just launched it to other marketeers like myself. So it was basically me just building something that I needed because I couldn't afford anything else. And so, yeah, and it has just been a really great niche in the market, I think. Attribution is, of course, a hot topic, but it has been like we're targeting SMBs, and there hasn't really been a solution to SMBs before. So we came in at a pretty good, people had a good understanding of what the attribution was, but with us, they could finally afford something. So they were like, yes, take my money, which was great in the beginning, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is a direct product market fit proof, and also, of course, a proof of your pricing strategy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I should be say a big thanks to all the other vendors that have been kind of paving the way, educating the market, because that has been done for several years. And then, of course, what happens often for these vendors that are VC backed and so on, they have to go up market because they have to drive more revenue. And then it's just natural that other players like us can come in and just serve another segment, which I think is really great. And it happens still often that people leave us when they are ready to go to a bigger platform. I mean, I think that's a great great way that the market can work, that you can work in like different segments and you don't necessarily have to compete. It's more that you work at different scales. So I think that has been really good.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Fantastic to hear. So, what has been to just go back on the founder part and how Fibbler came about? What has been the biggest shift for you in working in house as a B2B marketer to founding your own company and running your own show?
Um, I mean, I think first and foremost, it's just so motivating to do your own thing. Like, obviously, this is something I'm very passionate about, and then I'm able to do everything around that. I'm doing the logo, I'm doing the mascots, I'm doing the campaigns, I'm doing coding, which is like for me, I'm super motivated about. I'm a generalist, I would say. I'm not particularly good at one thing in marketing. I'm more okay at most things. So I think a role like this is like it's perfect for someone like me. I'd say where you can do a little bit of everything, and then it's just very motivating to kind of do things for yourself. If I want to work, um, if I don't want to work today, I can decide to do so, but then I have to work double tomorrow maybe. But it's my decision, and I really enjoyed that part of it. And I mean, I'm a first time founder still, I would say. So driving like deciding on how to build a product and everything that goes into that, pricing strategy and so on, are things I've never really done before. So that is of course super exciting to try. But I mean, it's also very hard. I mean, there's a lot of things that go wrong like all the time, but you also realize over time that, I mean, that's okay, and things will often work out anyways. Yeah, but I'm really blessed to. I mean, we did this for like I think 17 months or something on the side of our full time jobs. To now be able to do it full time has been really really fun, I would say. And yeah, let's see how long we can survive.
Well, so far it sounds like a fantastic journey, but you of course also mentioned that there are a few pitfalls. So, what are like the first learnings on things you tried that didn't work?
I mean, everything around the product has been a pitfall, I would say. I think in general, in the beginning, you're so happy when customers come to you, right? So it's almost like you accept everything. Someone has a feature request for this little thing and then you build it, and then you realize, okay, but no one used that thing. And if you do that many, many times, it doesn't become a really good product. So I think like being too much of a yes sayer in the beginning because you want customers and you want people to like what you're doing and so on was a big mistake that we did. There were a lot of things we built that shouldn't have been built, maybe. um, but it's also like how you get to market almost. The second thing is probably, you know, deciding where you want to be present. Like, I want to distribute on LinkedIn, I want to do cold email, I want to do YouTube. Like, so we've been a little bit all over the place, I feel sometimes, but then just deciding on, okay, we want to do LinkedIn really well, I want to do YouTube really well, and that's it. Especially when you're small, right, you have to focus your time. I think that's so important. And then I also think it's important when you start a company and you do it with a co-founder or multiple co-founders, and have a few colleagues, that you find good people to work with, because you will sometimes be frustrated with each other. You will have good days, you will have bad days, but that you can kind of look past that, and still have respect for each other. And I think that's the most important thing, that you, me and my co-founder, we know each other like 10 years back, so we are very close friends, of course, and I think that has really helped, like when things are tough, and they can be that for a few days or a few weeks, that you're able to bounce back and talk about it, and like, yeah, that it doesn't define you necessarily.
Yeah. That makes absolute sense. I've been part of a few startups and smaller teams, and it's
Mm.
both the absolute motivating part of that, because you're in it together and drive it together. Often have to think outside of the box to achieve impact. But yeah, at the same time, it's also the team collaboration and how you deal with setbacks and these things.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I've realized I really enjoy working in small teams, like regardless if it's my own company like now, or like just small marketing teams. I think it's so much easier to rally around, do something together, and like feel that you're in it together and do a lot of things, compared to like bigger teams where you often have maybe one more area that you focus on. I think it's just more motivating for most people, honestly, to have, you know, to do things together in a better way.
Well, I'm looking at the market. I think that is for some, right? I mean, the scale ups and the corporate, but it's lovely to hear your experience on that.
Yeah, and I mean, we also see now, right, which is one part of it, right, that there's so much layoffs going on, also in marketing, because marketing can often be seen as a more of a division that costs a lot of money than necessarily driving it, right? So I think now more than ever we have to do more with less in our marketing teams. We are typically fewer people, so I think that is both good and bad, in a way. Like, it's bad that people are being laid off for those reasons. It's good that we can maybe then be able to, okay, we are 4 people in the marketing team now, let's rally together around this and create a plan together, and just do really great work. So I think it has advantages also.
Definitely, and I think AI is a big part in that as well, right? So
Yeah,
it
100%.
makes people, when used right, more efficient and so on, which also
Yeah,
drives in a lot of cases the company strategy and actually downsizing marketing functions.
exactly. And I mean, I think we're going to see that in all departments going forward, right? Or we are already seeing that. It's just that it's going to come to. It has mostly been the big tech companies, right? But it's going to come to smaller companies as well, because everyone wants to increase their margins and so on, and totally understand that. So it's just, how do we? I think we and this is an AI discussion, of course, but we as marketeers, we also have to prepare for the AI world, right? I still really believe in marketing fundamentals about building great brands, narratives, and so on. But we also have to understand AI and how to use it to make it better, I think. And that is very difficult. I mean, it's a totally new world. I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's both why so many conversations are happening on it, but it also adds that layer of expectations are increasing, especially looking at marketing, both in terms of the expected outcomes and what marketing should deliver, but also when it comes to efficiency and productivity.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't really help whenever you go to LinkedIn and you read something like, "Oh, I replaced my marketing team with 5 Claude agents," and like, there's very there's not much nuances to LinkedIn sometimes when it comes to this. I still really think that marketing team members in your marketing team are more important than ever. Like some things you cannot automate. It will be it's impossible. Like a lot of the marketing area is also a lot about taste, right? And actually knowing when to do what and so on. And I don't think that is possible to outsource to an agent as an example. But some things, of course, you can make a lot faster. Definitely.
Yeah. Um, so, what have been the biggest lessons you've learned so far in building Fibbler?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think the biggest lessons is usually when things are going worse, that you have to really believe that it will go up again because it almost always does. Like I've really realized it S curve is very true. Like things will go up, then they will go down, they will go up again. Like it's easier to get very stressed about when things are going down. You believe that they will stay there forever. And I think it's very clear that that it really goes like this in, I think, in all of whatever company you're working for, that will be the scenario. And I think how you handle that is, I think I did that pretty, like in the beginning, I'm pretty sensitive in a way, so it's easy to be low when results are low, and up when results are up, right? But if you do that all the time, it's very hard, and I mean it's very stressful. So I think, yeah, sometimes not obsessing too much over the like short term results is good for your mental health, but looking a bit more long term as well. Like sometimes if you only look at the last month, it might look like you're only going down, but if you're looking 6 months back, you have actually climbed 20%. So it's easy. Yeah, it's easy to be hard on yourself, I think, when you're running a business especially.
Yes, so that sounds like the tough part, but I mean we already touched base on, or you already described the rewarding parts and the great parts of it. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. There's mostly tough parts, honestly, but the good parts is, I mean, at the end of all the bad things that happens is, of course, also often success, right? There's coming a bunch of customers and they are liking the product, and all of those things are, of course, great. But that's often because you solve the bad parts that is happening, I think. Yeah.
yes. Is there something that you have tried already that didn't work, and yeah, had a big takeaway from that with Fibbler?
Um, Good question. I mean, I have been trying, cold emails and so on a little bit. That is not something that is not my strong suit, I should say. So that hasn't worked really well, I would say. So I think it's mostly because I'm not good at that. Um, but I think honestly, I think a lot of the things we have done focused on LinkedIn has worked really well. I think it also helps that we're selling a product for LinkedIn through LinkedIn with ads on LinkedIn. So it's all like connected very well. But I think in terms of go to market, there's not many things we've failed with in that sense. I think a lot of those things are working really well. I think where we struggle more is, okay, how can we build the product faster? How can we do more with AI? We haven't really done a lot with AI at all in this day and age, which is maybe weird. We should probably. um, so I think that is more where we struggle than necessarily go to market. I think we've been very fortunate that I had a network already before we started selling that helped a lot in the beginning, and then just scaling from that really. Typically, I think the issue for many founders is like the opposite. They have this great product, but they have no way of like distributing and scaling it, go to market. I think we have had kind of the opposite issue where we have a lot of top funnel coming in, but we have to figure out how to deal with all of their requests and make sure we are able to build a better product and so on. Yeah.
That is a rewarding problem in that though. I also have to say I'm relieved here that this is kind of where the problem lies, especially if you also mentioned the focus on personal branding and narrative building and so on, because that certainly
Yeah.
speaks to it as well.
Yeah, but definitely. I mean, I think I think that part has worked really well for us, and I think we've timed it like a bit luckily as well. In that we launched this at a good time. Attribution was pretty hot, and came in with a cost efficient solution. It's also a good thing to talk about on social media. So I think, yeah, I think timing is also so important in business, right? I think if we would have launched this, I don't know, a couple of years ago, it would have been too soon because attribution was too new. So it's like, yeah, it's about having a bit of luck there also, I think.
Yeah, I mean, as so often in life, right? And
100%,
fortunately, also in
100%.
business, apparently.
Fortunately, yeah, exactly.
What is something you were convinced about a year ago that you have changed your perspective on now?
No, but I think I was convinced that we would have to hire, salespeople at some point, and do the whole demo and start selling. And I think I'm very much changing there. I think we're now trying to build like a self-serve. I really believe in the AI world we live in now, that you can be so few people and build things that, because what I've also realized is that marketeers, they are very advanced around SaaS tools. They've used a million different SaaS tools, so they don't necessarily need hand holding all the time. Sometimes, yes, of course, if something is tricky, but for 90% of the cases, they solve it on their own. So I think that is something I have. You can build a product that people can understand on their own. Is maybe my like, yes, a sales force you are going to have help with, but with less complex tools, you can probably do it way more efficiently, like we're trying to do now. So I think my learning is probably that you can build really great companies with just a few people these days, and then we'll just see how far it takes us. But then you have to, obviously, if you do more of a sales led motion, take with account managers and so on, it's not going to work in the same way. But if you do it AI first, automate as much as you can while still being there for your customers, I still think you can go pretty far.
That is a fantastic learning, and of course, from a marketing perspective, nice to hear. We already talked about the shifts in the market, so it is of course across companies and departments that are impacted in different segments, right?
Exactly.
If you're looking at B2B marketing today, what do you think is something that we'll see or say in 2 to 3 years and say, oh, we got that totally wrong back then?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think we see this, like go-to-market engineers and marketing engineers as being the newest, hottest role right now, that is being rolled out across the US, because we have all of these AI workflows and so on. And I'm not necessarily sure that is like a role that will stay necessarily. I think all of marketing will work with AI. I don't think it's like tied to any one role, and hopefully we will all be more, in a few years we will be really well versed in AI. I still think, at least for me, like everything around agents and so on is still pretty foreign. Like, it's not something most of us has worked a lot with. So I think it will become more of like an everyday thing for all of us. And then I don't think this kind of go-to-market AI engineer for marketing is really needed anymore. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. But of course, it aligns with what we already said, that AI is like becoming an integrated part of I
Mm,
think nearly every employee's day to day. But of
100%.
course, on how to incorporate it in the bigger structure, I mean that depends on the company size and so on. But in RevOps, it's already a big part, and marketing automation, it is already a big part. So I think it's also a question of how this will be shifted or divided between the different parts of the organization within the
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Well, thanks so much for joining and talking about attribution, today's B2B market, and Fibbler, of course. And just to mention that as well, you are launching a YouTube channel with Fibbler.
Yes, we are. We did it very educational at first. I wanted to kind of talk about LinkedIn and stuff I knew there, but now we are doing vlogs as well because it's the ultimate personal behind the scenes, I think. So yeah, trying to do more of that.
So, do you want to share a bit on what will happen there and when it will all launch?
Yeah, it is actually launched already. So it is the YouTube channel is called Fibbler Adam. So we're launching like videos every week. It's partly educational, of course, around the playbooks and so on. But then it's these behind the scenes vlogs that we're doing. Yeah, just regular weeks on what's happening. Right, next week I'm traveling to LinkedIn's office in Dublin, so I'm taking it with me. The week after that, we have an event here in Malmö called SaaS, so I will film that. So a bunch of those things, which I think is very fun to just take people along on, like how it looks to run a business, more or less.
Yes, and we're of course looking forward to following your journey. We
Yeah,
went as me and the listeners and B2B marketers in Scandinavia. So yeah, great stuff coming there. And yeah, thanks for joining today.
thank you so much.